Hi, guys.
Ooh, I was muted. Hello.
Oh, there's
Can
my
you hear me
web.
okay?
Hi there.
Hi, Kathy. Hi, Melissa.
How are you?
Good. Kathy, are you in here twice?
I don't
Yeah.
know. Am I?
Yeah, it shows her twice. I think that there's a bug.
Hang on, I gotta find my share screen so I don't show you all my other crazy stuff I've got. Let's see. Hang on one second. Okay.
Kathy, does it show double for you?
I don't know why it has two of me on there.
One of
I
them
had-
says that it's connecting to audio, so I think it's just like hung up.
How's everybody doing?
Good. Got my refill of caffeine.
I can't
And yes,
find
I'm
myself.
drinking coffee at 9 p.m. I am. Hi, Kim. You're on mute, but I'm good.
No more mute.
There you go.
I can't find my face. I want to see my face so that I can see if I look dumb. Okay.
We can see you and you look great.
Oh, view. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I do not do this very often here. Okay. Immersive. What's that mean? Ooh, backgrounds. Oh, that's cool. Okay. I just don't see the group, the people.
Click on the view at the top right. Maybe you have it on speaker instead of
Okay,
gallery.
view. Oh, I do. Okay, gallery. Oh, okay. So the sun's right in my face. There, I'll do this.
The corporate lifestyle has traumatized me with Zoom calls.
Well, anytime I'm on a Zoom, I'm on the other side. And so I always mute myself.
Yeah. As I was telling you one day, it's like I created a corporate lingo bingo because they always say the same dumb corporate slang, corporate buzzwords. It's the only way to pass those meetings.
So you guys, while I'm thinking of it, as questions come up, just post them like in the chat. And when we get to the question answer period, we'll kind of go to them at that point. And then when I say, oh, here's a link, blah, 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 Alicia's gonna throw a link in there. So
Yes.
you can
Oh,
find
yes. I have to copy
stuff.
that.
But I'm recording this and so you guys will be able to refer to it. I'm also saving the documents that I share, or the presentation, as well as this checklist that we made, that Alicia made, that's beautiful, so that you guys can do that too. So yeah, so I hate starting late with things because I like to be respectful of people's time. So I guess we'll get started. Does that work? All right. Like I said, bear with me because I've never been like the facilitator before, but I'm going to, okay, share my screen. Okay, hang on. Oh, crud. How do I do this? How do I share my, oh, desktop.
Yeah, it's gonna let you choose which screen you want to share.
Allow Zoom to share your screen. Open system. Can you guys see my screen? Oh, hang
Not
on.
yet.
All right, I gotta. Oh my gosh, I had all of this stuff ready and then I didn't know I had to do all these.
You're in the most understanding group imaginable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh crap. It says Zoom won't record your contents of your screen until it's quit. All right, so give me a second and I'll be right back, I guess. Is that all right? I don't
Yeah.
think this will end everything.
Go
Okay,
for it.
right back. In the world. Oh, there we go. Cool. Is this it? Oh, yes.
There we go.
Can you guys see that? I was gonna do all this cool stuff like this. I was gonna have this and be like, okay, we're gonna start.
That's cute.
Okay, so packing your oh shit kit. So this is not at all like a comprehensive, I mean, it's pretty comprehensive, but I imagine like just I've talked to a few people this last couple weeks since we decided to do this. And I keep getting ideas of other things to include. So even write in the chat some of your ideas too, and we'll jot those down and we'll add them to the list. Okay. So here's our agenda. Why do you need backups? What are the consequences for not having backups? Starting small and growing with having backups. Adding your second booth. I'll explain what that even means if you feel like that's totally crazy. Supplies and backups for your iPads, and then we'll have a little Q&A at the end. Okay. So do I really need backups? Eddie Murphy helps us here. In my experience, at least, if anything can go wrong, it will. Technology is not reliable. Your equipment will fail. It's only a matter of when. And cables, cords, bulbs, power supplies, things like that are all disposable products.
They grow feet.
What was that?
They grow feet.
Yeah, and they just, I mean, I have learned, I used to buy, I was like, oh, they have 10-foot printer cables. Great, that's convenient. They're crap, like ones that I would find. And so then I had to learn that if I needed a really long printer cable, I had to spend a little bit more money. Or I get those, the gold ones. I don't know what they're called, but
Yeah, they have a gold coating.
Yeah, those seem to be better. But if I have a 10-foot cord, I always bring plenty of 6-foot cords, things like that. Just kind of overviews here. Okay. What are the consequences for not having proper backups? The earth will explode. You'll have angry clients and you will put yourself out of business. I mean, those are kind of some extremes, but it's cheaper to
Karens.
What was that?
Karens, dealing with Karens should be there.
Oh, and I've had a bunch of those. It's cheaper to invest in backups than to refund your clients. I mean, the idea of buying a second, $600 or $800 printer is like, oh my gosh. But when you're charging, $1,000, $1,500 for an event, then you end up having to refund because your printer didn't work. It doesn't seem like it's so much at that point. Another consequence, the reputation that you've worked so hard to build can be destroyed with just one event from not being prepared. And word of mouth travels fast, and people with a negative experience, that word of mouth travels even faster. So plan to prepare and save yourself from failure. So what goes in the backup kit? Everything. Just kidding. Things that can fail. This is just sort of a, general thing. Cords and cables, flash bulbs and model lights, power supplies, equipment, media, gaff tape, batteries, things that, we might tend to forget. So here is did I skip a slide? Hang on, I just want to make sure I didn't skip that. Okay. Here's the checklist that Alicia so beautifully made. And we organized it kind of based on technology, cables, miscellaneous, business stuff, personal stuff, whatever. Then I was talking to Lap. I don't know if she's on here yet, but she likes to organize based on like what it is. Like for the printer, that I have media kit, I have spacers, I have power cords, I have my printer cable, all those things. So just depends on like your personality of what's the easiest way to organize for yourself. So we have downloads of the original here that you could add to. We have it in a PDF so that you can just edit it. And then also we've listed a blank one as well so that you can get to that easy too. So I'm just gonna, before I get started, the idea of saying buy an extra printer, buy an extra Surface Pro, buy an extra camera, all these things, like if any of you are feeling like, ugh, I don't have the money to do that, just, I mean, let me just, reassure you, just start small, grow. You should be charging enough that you can be saving for replacement products. Your photo booth event should, like you should not be charging only what it costs you in gas, in media, in time, for your event. You should be charging enough so that you can replace your equipment, because we are in a technology business and things are going to happen. They might get broken, they might get stolen, whatever. You need to be able to have that money set aside to replace them as needed. But as far as backups, be smart. Don't put yourself out of business feeling like you need to buy everything at one time. And if you're running a second booth, then you may already have the backups of everything. If you have two booths, you do have two printers, you do have two Surface Pros. Obviously your booth itself, the piece of steel, you don't need a second one of those because it's a piece of metal, like nothing's going to happen to it. But if you have the products, or if you have all the equipment for two booths and you're usually only sending one booth out at a time, you could very well send all of the second booth as backups for everything. So I'm going to start with just some of the, first I'm going to start with the big ticket items and then kind of go from there. Camera, printer, tablet, your flash, laptop, iPad, like those are kind of the biggies. Hang on, let me go to this. Personally, camera, I've never had to replace a camera. I've had to replace a lens. Printer, I've never had to replace a printer. A tablet, whether it's your Surface Pro or iPad, it's nice to have a second one of those. I've shown up at events and there was a typo on the template, or the bride changed her mind of what she wants it to say. I mean, if you have your design software on either the tablet that you're using for your booth, or if you can just bring the laptop that you use with your design software on it, or if you use Canva, that's even easier because it's just in the cloud. Then you can edit, on the spot right there. Flash, I've not had a flash go bad, but I've had sync cables go bad. I've had model lights go bad. I've had, the flash ring go bad, things like that. Camera hot shoes, I've had tons of those go bad. I always have like 2 or 3 even. They're cheap. They're like $10, I think. Camera power supplies, I've had tons of those go bad. If you're using battery for your camera, it's a lot better. Battery is great to have as backup, but you really should run your camera with a power supply, because then that way you don't have to worry about changing out batteries. You don't have to worry about stopping the booth because you got to change out the batteries. It starts to stall and slow down when you start running out of batteries, things like that. So this just really helps that. But again, I always have an extra one of those. Flash tubes and model lights. the flash tubes are kind of expensive, but the model lights are pretty cheap. So I always have 2 or 3 of those. A USB hub, even if you don't use one, just if you had one, just in case something happens and you need to have everything plugged into one. Wireless keyboard. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily get a replacement of those because you can just have the keyboard for your tablet on there. If you're running iPads, we're going to go into iPads later, but a battery power bank, those are awesome to have on hand, because anytime, like if you've done a lot of like drop-off booths, you show up and they're like, no, we want to have this right in the middle of the yard. It's like, well, there's no power out here. If you have a battery bank, battery power bank, then you don't have to worry about it. I've had events, I can run for 4 hours, the flash at full brightness, like say in the Aura booth, on a battery bank. If you're not using flash, it'll work a lot longer. Light wands. This is kind of more for iPad, but also for green screen events. They're great for if you show up and you kind of need some extra light and the light from your flash isn't doing it, or the ambient light isn't kind of doing it, then that kind of helps for that. And where I say extras here, don't consider this as not as important because it says extras. It was just something we couldn't really fit in a specific category. But media, like when I started doing this is because I had a 3-hour event. I brought an entire box of media, and which is what, 800 4x6. I think we were even doing 2x6 at this event. And I went through an entire box of media in 3 hours. It was insane. And, I had an extra box in the car, but it was in a parking garage. And by the time, to send an attendant to get it would probably be like 15 minutes. I had 15 minutes left at the event, and I sort of just couldn't do it. So the rest of the people didn't have photos, which was embarrassing. Or I don't know if any of you have experienced having a box of media not work, or a roll, or having the tape be or like the ink thing be messed up, and it's just this total crazy event. You don't have time to like tape it back together, whatever. It's just easier just to take everything out, put a whole new one in, and you just had it, and you can just figure it out at home what the problem was, or put with the new one. So just because it's not empty doesn't mean that you can't take it out. So over on the cables, 6-foot printer cable, I always have 1 to 2 extras. 10-foot printer cable I always bring. And like I said, because they're not super reliable, the longer you get from 6 feet, I kind of try to bring 2 of those. Surge protector, I've never really had a problem with a surge protector, but an extra one would be good for that. Extension cords, I learned that I needed a 50 a few times, and so now I always bring a 25 and a 50. Power supplies, so that's just the female 3-prong and the male 3-prong to connect to whatever. If it's like one of those old-fashioned outlets where it doesn't fit quite right or whatever. I mean, like there's anything. But the USB micro that goes into your camera, flash sync cable, USB cables, the monitor power cord, I guess for maybe a replacement one of those for like your Surface Pro. And for iPads, like the lightning cable, and a phone and battery charger. It's kind of just like a nice to have, because when you're getting ready for an event and then it's like, oh crap, my phone is now almost dead, and you get to the event, you don't have anywhere to charge it because everything else is plugged in. Just kind of a nice little thing to have. And then just these little extras like the media, the separators, like if you're doing larger images, gaff tape, backdrop clamps. Oh my gosh, for if you're doing an outside event, or if you don't know what kind of what kind of circumstance you're going to have, even if you're indoors and you're next to the windows and your backdrop's flying all over the place, or if you get your backdrop out and it's all wrinkly and you need to kind of pull it tight to, to be straight. Backdrop clamps are awesome. They're on Amazon. In fact, I looked up what they were properly called, and I just looked up backdrop clamps, and you can find tons of those on there for pretty cheap. Screen white, white balance card, backdrop weights. Those are super handy too, especially for outside events. Your props, racks and holder. I mean, those are obviously aren't backups, but just things to have. And then this is just kind of some miscellaneous stuff. The tape I learned is very handy to have because of like if the media, what do you call that part? The color part, your ink breaks. I've had it break before. I know lots of people have, and you just quickly tape it back together and that's it. Scissors, again, for the media, the breaks, or if you have to, put a new roll out and it just, or you have jagged end or whatever. Screwdriver and Allen wrench. Because if your husband, I have no idea who this has happened to, wink, wink, happens to pack your booth and doesn't pack your bolts and then has to drive an hour to bring them to you because he didn't put them in, that kind of sucks. So having extra bolts and the screwdrivers and all that. Fans. And another thing, like what I learned from Lap is like she'll bring like an ice chest or some ice packs for like an iPad event where if you're outside, and in LA events are really hot in the summer, and then you can kind of cool down the iPads, or if you have one that starts to overheat, you can kind of swap them out, and then while the other one's cooling down, the other one's heating up, and then you can just kind of keep swapping them out if you need to. Some kind of general things like having a copy of the contract in case there's some miscommunication, you have access to it really quick. Business cards for prospective clients, from guests, if you don't put your information on the photo template. Cash, I've shown up at events and needed cash for valets that I didn't have, and that sort of sucks. Backup contact info. Alicia, what was that one?
Well, like, sometimes when you're at an event and you cannot get a hold of the host because they are running around.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Like a point of contact, which should be on your contract.
Definitely. So the like the day of coordinator or the venue person or whoever's doing that kind of thing. Okay, then these are sort of things that we've kind of run into that aren't things that you really think about it. Band-aids. I've gotten blood all over stupid stuff from cutting myself while setting up. Hand sanitizer. Yeah. Mints, because you're like talking to so many people and you've got like that cotton mouth. And I learned to bring a change of clothes, especially for like weddings or corporate events, because I'm a sweaty mess by the time I'm done setting up, especially if it's an outdoor summer event. So you have something nice and clean to put on. Something for headache, Tylenol, whatever, deodorant, water, snacks. How many of us have expected a vendor meal and we haven't gotten them, or we've been too busy to go get it? So just having, some granola bars or something like that and some water. Things, just imagine if you're stuck there the whole night with no attendant and you can't walk away. I mean, don't drink too much water if you can't get away to go to the bathroom.
You get hungry.
Yeah. Sewing kit, hair ties, things like that. Let's see. Okay. So, adding your second booth. So by starting your backup kit, you're working towards a second booth setup. So with that being the case, like I remember when I first started and I was just like, well, how do you know when you need a second booth? If you're noticing that pretty often, or even like monthly, you're telling people, no, sorry, I'm booked that day. I mean, for one, I would personally take it and white label it to somebody else so that they would think to contact you in the future. But if you're getting those inquiries, it's probably time to start thinking about getting a second booth. You might not be using them simultaneously, then that way you have a backup for your event. And then when you start using both booths but like regularly, then it's time to start, backups for those. for example, I had a client that we've done an event for them, I guess twice. And these were like 5-figure events, not an event that I could afford anything to go wrong. So I had an extra printer, I had extra booth. My booths were like the selfie station booth. So not just like a Surface Pro I could bring along, but an entire second booth. Twice as much media as I knew I needed, an extra camera, basically any possible thing that could possibly happen, I had packed in my van, because I couldn't afford, I had to spend a lot of that money to get the supplies I needed to run these events. For example, they wanted ropes and stanchions, and I was only a few months in, and it's like I had to buy ropes and stanchions. I had to buy like social media sharing stations. I had to buy a whole bunch of stuff to be able to pull off this event. And like I said, I could not afford to not have, to have a problem. Did I ever need it? No, I've never needed, me personally, I've never had to pull out a second printer. I guess it's just kind of one of those kind of use your best judgment. Like, let's just say you had 2 booths and you have a third printer and you needed it, and you have that one corporate client and that one, like maybe social event in somebody's house. Maybe it's not a big deal if they don't get their prints. You could probably bring it to them the next day if there was a problem. I'd bring my second printer to the corporate event. So you just sort of have to prioritize which ones are the most important or the most crucial to not have fail. That's kind of my, opinion on it. Okay, so supplies and backups for iPad booths. An extra iPad is good. I have never, well, one time I bought a brand new iPad because the iPad Pros were brand new and you couldn't get them used. Other than that, I always buy refurbished from Amazon, the Apple certified or whatever you call them. They all come with like a 90 or 30-day guarantee. So that if there's a problem, then you can return it. And I've never in 5 years have had a problem ever. You don't need to spend a bunch of money on extra storage because you're saving all of your images into the cloud, and I only use them for my events. So you can get an iPad Pro now, like even a big one for like $200 or $300. Another smart thing to do as far as backup is have your event loaded into a backup software. How many of you were around for the snap pick disaster of, gosh, what was it, 2018, where all events failed one night across their entire customer base? So having an extra software that you use, Curator, like if you use Snappick or Darkroom, or Breeze now has iPad software. Even if you don't have the event finished, so let's just say you use Curator, you can load an event in Snappick as a pay-per-use event, and until you publish that event, you don't have to pay for it. So you could have it all loaded in, and then just kind of as your backup, and then if all shit breaks loose, then you can pop over to the new software, get it all loaded up, it's ready to go, you haven't wasted any time, boom, done, fine. The power bank, like I had mentioned earlier, the battery bank, LED light wands and stands, these are great. I ended up at an event and they didn't have enough room. It was supposed to be they had chosen a DSLR booth for green screen and an iPad booth. Well, I got there, they didn't have enough space for everything. And so they wanted the gifts and everything that I already had ready on the iPad. So we just did that with green screen. It was awful. There was not enough light from the booth itself for what green screen needs. I didn't have light wands and they did not turn out well at all. I felt horrible. Allen wrench and screwdriver. Again, I've shown up at iPad events and not had what I needed. Had to ask around the venue for a screwdriver to be able to get the iPad in my booth. lightning cable and extra power supply, a MiFi or portable hotspot. In case you don't have that, I personally wouldn't rely on the venue to provide those things, just because I want to kind of come in all, I don't know, one-man band, whatever you call, all inclusive, whatever. So that's my thoughts on that. And then let me pass this for a second, but on the last page here, you guys are I'm going to share a copy of this in the group. I'm going to have a download this on YouTube. And so you guys will have the video will be on YouTube. And then in the comments below, I'll have like the links to be able to get the checklist and actually in this folder that'll have the presentation as well as the documents. So that's that. Obviously, I know you can't click on that link right now.
Oh, I put it in the chat.
Oh, okay, awesome, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know I talked really, really fast. So do you guys, does anybody have tampons and sanitary pads? That's awesome. Yeah, the ribbon, ribbon, yes, that's the word. Alicia put ink, but yeah, same thing.
See, I haven't done events in the longest time, so.
Yeah, no, the whole time today I was like, media kit, is that for a media kit or is that for like a social media? I was having a hard time with the words, but let's see here. Thinking what else? Yeah, hotspot charger. I think that is a mini USB or a micro. Can't remember if it's the same one that you use for your camera or the same one that you use for something else, but
camera is micro USB.
Okay. So I think
the hotspots are, it depends on what hotspot you have, but they're all
changing.
So you have to eyeball
yeah,
it.
you're right. In fact, my hotspot has USB-C, so it's a good idea to have all that stuff.
I have a suggestion there. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. So if you get the USB adapter kit, so that it comes with the multiple adapters, that kind of eases your mind whether or not you need a C or a mini. And so you can get those kits and it'll have like 5 or 6 adapters in there. Yeah. And so that'll work with most any cables that you have.
Okay.
We use those. Awesome. We use those too. We use those to charge a lot of our devices. They're on Amazon for like 2-pack for like $15 or something like that. Those are great for charging. But I wouldn't rely on those for like your camera to your PC. You want to get better quality, like branded. Like I like Anchor. They're a really good brand for cables and battery chargers. But the adapter that you're talking about, we use those to charge like our iPads and our battery banks and things like that, because then you never have to worry about not having the cable.
Exactly.
Now, if I may interject, we didn't really get into 360 boots here. That's a whole other animal, but the same thing applies really. These things have the spinning arms, get an extra pull. I have heard horror stories of people falling over the arm and then the whole thing shuts down. So if you're able to get another arm, that's always a great idea. For those ladies that have 360s, if you want to chime in on that, that'd be great. But that's really all I can think about right now, since I don't own one. I'm not too sure what goes on them, but I would say that the arm would be a crucial part.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I have a question. So I was on a kick for a week or so after one of the PBXs and bought 2 backups of every cord, every cable, every screw. And then I sort of let them sit there and they're still sort of sitting there collecting dust. And I know I need to go in there and identify which boot, because I have several different booths, several different software. And I'm sort of overwhelmed with trying this process. Does anyone have a really great organizational system like an over the door rack or some easy way to identify what all of these extra cables are for?
I personally,
Julia's,
everything for my
they're vinyl.
like say for my camera in one little bin, or like with my camera and my booth in one bin, then you know, like when you're panicking because something isn't working, you know where to look, you know. I mean, but other than that, I kind of have like, you know, those clear shoebox size
Yeah.
bins, you know, like I just have all the cables in there. But you might, I mean,
You can use a label printer. That's what we did. There's like wire label printer, and then you wrap the label around the wire,
oh,
whatever
that's smart.
the item is. That's how we trained the staff, my staff, to recognize the different types of cables that we have available. Because there's so many: USB-C, USB mini. So the label printer with for wires, that's what you want to look for.
Okay, that's great.
And then you guys went through the 360 really fast. I can add to that. I'm sorry, I was on the phone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I barely added to it because we didn't really even touch on it. We don't.
It's okay. I have a few 360s, and I've actually had someone fall on the arm. So if you can get your manufacturer to send you a backup arm, that's really helpful. A lot of the manufacturers don't sell the 360s with the additional arms. When we had an event where someone fell on the arm, it was 45 minutes, and we actually ended up having to shut down because it actually bent the whole undercarriage. So my solution was to get a manual, a really small 1 foot by 2 foot manual that we can actually rent too. We can rent that out too. But it's so portable that we can take along with us. But for the backup, you back up everything. If you're using GoPros, get a GoPro as a backup. We ended up having 3 GoPro backups. If you're using an iPhone, you're probably using like an iPhone 12 or 13 because those are the newer, those are on the newer, what are they called, OS? I'm not good with Apple, but have like an older iPhone as backup if you can. Same thing with an iPad. You might not output the same quality video like you would with the 13 Pro or whatever the current one is. You don't have to invest in the exact same thing. It's better. I feel like it's better to have something than nothing with the 360. So
I was gonna ask Lap, can you share a couple horror stories?
I've had everything. I've had everything happen to me, you guys, and I don't joke about it. But we do a lot of events. I mean, we do multiple events every single weekend throughout the week. So most of you probably, like Julia, you said you never had a flash go out. That's not surprising. Most of you will never have a flash go out. I've had a flash go out, but we do a lot of events. We don't do crazy volume, but my team hands off the equipment, and so it gets, there's a lot more movement with our equipment. I've had the lens go out, and that's one of the things that's really hard to troubleshoot. So you do have to learn to identify where the problem is. Where we thought that the camera was broken, we have backup of the camera. It ended up just being the lens. Either for whatever reason something got wedged in there and it didn't, it didn't engage. And there was something wrong with the lens. I don't know what it was because I wasn't on site, but we just switched out the lens versus the entire camera. It was actually easier to replace just the lens versus swapping out the entire camera. But we've had hot shoes. That's probably the most, if you guys want a list of the most common things that you definitely don't want to skimp on, I would say the hot shoe is the one that goes the quickest. We change those out probably like every 2 months. They're horrible. They're cheap and they're horrible. So have like at least 3. And then all your camera cables, the USB, if you're using a T6, T7, they're USB minis, those go out very frequently as well. And we've had the Surface Pro, though probably the worst story was the Surface Pro charger, 45 minutes into the event, right when we got busy where the line grew the longest, we realized it hadn't been charging during setup and it shut down in the middle of the event. So it's always important that you know where keep all your backup equipment in like one oh shit bag. That's what I call it, an oh shit bag, because you're gonna panic when this stuff happens, So if you have a go-to bag, don't have everything scattered around, have in one bag. You can run to it. And that's exactly what we did. We ran under the table, grabbed the oh shit bag, and we pulled out the Surface Pro charger, plugged it in. It took maybe like 5-10 minutes to charge. We had like 1% battery. We started running again. But you think that these things are reliable, and they're not. The cables are the things that you want to back up. If you are really limited on your funding, your budget, back up your cables. That's the most important thing. Any small components, the cheapest things are the things that go the quickest. We always have backup of the camera and the printer. And it's not that the printer goes out often, but things happen. Like drunk guests who knock over your printer off the shelf, that happens. You dropping it as you're transporting into the event, that happens. So even though the printer is super expensive investment, it's one of those things where without the printer, they'll notice, you know what I mean? But I always tell people, like, when they think I'm crazy because we have six main booths that we use, and we have backups of everything, and people think I'm crazy. But when your client is spending, however, like, think of whatever your most expensive package is. If your client is booking that package, your premium package, and something so small like a USB-C cable went out, USB mini goes out, you're gonna kick yourself for not having that cable, for investing, how much are those cables? Like $5-7. You're gonna kick yourself for not having that. I've had an experience where I was being cheap with what's the remote in software, whatever, like, what's that called? Like the software to like remote into your PCs. Yeah, TeamViewer. So there's a whole bunch of different ones. Like a lot of people use the free ones. Like AnyDesk is a free one. You guys can try it. I always remote into all of my events with my team. And we had an event where they weren't able to troubleshoot. They're able to, if you can't TeamViewer in because of internet, you walk them through the phone. But this was one of those things that was more advanced. And I had all the free ones because I didn't want to spend money on TeamViewer is like $1,600 a year. It's not cheap. And this event would have cost me more than TeamViewer. And I have not looked back since I bought TeamViewer because I wasn't able to log in using all the other cheaper or free. And this is not the case with everybody. It's just, I think in LA, the internet's not always great, so you know what you need. And it's like a risk assessment. Like you decide if it's worth, if you have to refund that event, is it going to be worth refunding that event or investing in whatever it is that will ensure that your event will run? And the same thing with software. And this happened yesterday. My horror story happened yesterday, you guys. I deployed a iPad booth out, iPad DSLR. And I've run it with 360. I've run it, I did tests, things like that, never had an issue. And at this event, we snapped a photo and it just froze. It didn't process the photo at all. We rebooted it. We switched out cameras. We switched 3 cameras. So we used 3 different cameras. And in the end, I had to clear out the entire booth and build it from scratch back into a regular DSLR booth. What is it called? Surface Pro. So we pulled all the components because all the components were made for an iPad booth. We pulled everything out. We stripped it completely and we had to put back in a Surface Pro. So we did a whole swipe of gear, completely changed it out. And we were able to run, thank goodness. It was a panic attack, but thank goodness. So always having backup of everything is ideal, but yeah. I have a lot of horror stories. If you have a question of something you don't think it'll fail, ask me and I'll tell you if it fails.
If it can fail, it will fail. It's just a matter of
Yeah,
time.
for sure. I had another thought of a backup is time. Like if you're in cities like say LA, like it's me 45 minutes to get downtown. I plan on 2 hours to get downtown because there's going to be an accident. That's when it's going to be. Or if there's any delay, if freeways close, anything like that, it's going to happen.
And then I plan the right location.
Exactly. And then once you get there, it's like, okay, I'm here. I'm good to go. No, we still have to find parking. You still have to, load up your stuff. You still have to walk into the event. You still have to find the right person to figure out where you're going to set up. So if you're giving yourself an hour for setup, plan on giving yourself at least whatever you need to set up. I would give yourself at the very least 50% more, because like what Lap said, I'm sure she showed up early enough so that when she figured out that her stuff wasn't working, she still had time to do this whole magical thing that Cheese did and still be able to start on time. Do you know what I mean? I had an event that was I want to say an hour and a half away. And I left my house 3 hours early and I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be there so early. This is so stupid, blah, blah, blah. Well, we got lost in the middle of nowhere. It looked like I ended up on the set of The Walking Dead. I thought someone was going to murder us. We had to ask some like meth head local to help us find where we were supposed to go. By the time we found the venue, we had enough time for 20 minutes to set up. I mean, so I think all in all, like between transportation and setup time, I used all of it trying to find the place. And we started a few minutes late, but I mean, it was the quickest setup ever. And so it's just plan on having that extra time, because nothing's going to happen if you're early, but if something happens and you're late, it's so stressful, you start sweating, then you're like panicking and everything. So just having that. Oh, lint roller is amazing. Yes, that's a good one too. I was going to tell you guys about a story with Lap. Is one night she called me and I had a brand new baby. It was probably, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night. And she's like, you got to come down here. My camera just stopped working. So, and I was pretty new to the area. So I drove all the way downtown, found her, like, I think it was like a wedding and it was in the middle of speeches or whatever, and brought her new camera. And then the next day we got, back together or whatever to replace it. But besides the backup part of it, it's good to make friends with the people that are in your area, because you just never know. I mean, it's like what goes around comes around. If you're going to help somebody, I mean, if somebody needs help and you help them, they will help you when you need the help. If you don't, they won't either. You know what I mean? I don't like to think of the people that I work, around as competition, but more like colleagues, and then that way, it's like if I have too many events, I can share with them and vice versa. So it's always,
You never know.
suited me. Yeah.
Going back to something that Janice mentioned, definitely test everything you get for backups. Because yes, it can be brand new and it could not work. So check them out as soon as you get them. Because it could happen, maybe it's not compatible, maybe they say that it's new, but it was probably refurbished and it doesn't really work. So trust, but verify.
Yeah, definitely. And Diane mentioned steamer for the backdrop or table cover. I personally have never had to steam my table cover because I've used polyester that doesn't wrinkle, which is
The spandex.
awesome. Not the spandex ones. I don't really like those because I try to shove too much stuff under there and you can see. But the table, but just having like from CD Linens, they've got them for like, I don't know, $12 or something like that. And they're kind of nice just to have a bunch of them. Lap, I was telling them that story of when your camera went out when you were at that event near Dodger Stadium. Do you remember that? I came there and I felt like the middle of the night because I had this brand new baby.
Yes. It's so important it's so awesome and very important to like network with other boothers around you, because sometimes there will be a situation where you don't have it, even though you try to have everything. And yeah, thank goodness.
Yep. And even another idea too, you guys, is like, we've done this before, is Ubering products to each other, where it's like, I don't have time to do this, but I can send you a box of media, have Uber come to your house, promise them that the person will be there by the time they show up. And they're just a cheap delivery service. Not cheap, but cheaper than being without,
I think something that you don't think about, and it's good that you talked about that, because I did an event up in NorCal and all the booth equipment got shipped back. Half of it got shipped back and half of it I traveled back home with. And then we had an event. And as I was trying to build my booth, I realized that the screws was in the booth, the equipment that was up in NorCal that was pending shipping. So Lisa Oler Ubered me screws for my booth. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to put it together. So yeah, have backup of your screws too. If your booth takes screws to put together, have backup of those, because those aren't that easy. Some of the booths are very specific with the type of screws they have, or the type of screwdriver or whatever you're using. So have that, because you might not be able to run to Home Depot to pick one up.
Awesome. anybody anybody want to share a horror story or something that ended up going really nice because you did have a backup?
I have a question, but also when you talk about time, this happened to me probably about 3 weeks ago. We get there, an hour and a half early, 2 hours early, only to find out that the client put the wrong time. So the event, she put that it was supposed to start at 7 when she booked us, but it actually started at 6. Yes. And so, still yet, we rocked it out at 5:55. We were ready to go. And
Wow.
we were thrilled that that we were going to be finished an hour earlier because this was like an 8th grade prom. And so it was like, okay, we're not here till 10, we're only here till 9. So, but we busted our behind to get it all together. Okay, now my question is, whenever it comes to an additional printer, I need to purchase an additional printer, but my holdup has been I have an RX1. I really want a 620, DNP 620. But everything that I've read and had discussions with people, I get 2 different concepts. Buy what you already have. That way, the media is the media. And then others, you've got to get that 620. It's much faster. So I'm torn, but it's time for me to purchase. So,
Give you some insight.
okay,
Give you some insight.
thank you.
When I first started, I started as a budget provider, and I had bought Brava, which was super cheap back then. And then I had issues with color, and I was in the same spot as you. Like, I don't want this printer anymore. I want to upgrade to the latest and the greatest. And so I thought I would just get a new, the 620 and keep the Brava as backup. And that ended up backfiring because having the same media is hard to keep track of. When you're at an event, it's hard to, when you're panicking and because we've had that happen where we switched out the printer to the Brava, and it was like, oh shit, I'm sorry, we don't have, we forgot to pack the backup media because it's not the same, because you never think that's going to go out. But if you already if you already have the backup printer being the same, you don't even have to think twice about like, oh shit, we got to remember to grab that other ink media kit for the other printer. So for me, when I transitioned, it was really a struggle just because of that one time. I ended up having to call another boother to bring me their printer, and he forgot the ink with his printer too. So we ended up failing the event because of that. So if you're thinking about going over to the 620, get the 620 and just save as quick as you can to get a backup 620. I wouldn't keep a Brava as backup in the long run. Like, save up with every event you book so that you have 2 of the same exact, because I hated having 2 different media kits for 2 different printers. Like I have DS40s right now because of the shortage of the 620. I never want to bring it. Like the only time I would bring it is I bought 2 DS40s so that if I do an event, that one event is going to have 2 of the same exact printers. Like I would never do 2 different printers again because of my experience with that. I know it's a hard hit to like spend that kind of money on a print. That's probably one of the most expensive pieces besides a PC. But that, again, it's the one thing that they'll know that it's not working when it goes wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Getting another RX1. I got a 620, and you go through media a lot faster, and you have to remember, oh, I got to grab that box of media when I go out. So unless you're selling the different size options that the 620 allows you to do that the RX1 doesn't, I would just invest in another RX1. Those are great printers, and the difference between speed is not that much. I don't even notice it.
I think the color is a big difference. I think the RX1 doesn't do like the turquoises and the pinks as good. That's what my issue with the Bravo was too. It didn't hit like the pastels that well.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the weight is a big deal for me.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
heavier.
Yeah, they're a lot heavier. When you have two of them, that's like, oh man.
They are heavier.
Lap, and I
Leilani. Oh, sorry.
Oh. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just had a quick question for Lap. I think it says Lap.
Yes, my name is Lap. Hi.
Yes, Lap. Okay, you were mentioning about the RX1 not doing the turquoises and things like that. Did you use a wireless connector?
Never use wireless because I don't believe you want to add extra complication to anything. So
Well,
it wasn't
the reason-
wireless, it was hardline. I always hardline everything that I use whenever I can.
The reason
no.
why I asked that is because I found out, we noticed that when we use the module, the wireless module to connect from an iPad to printer, the turquoise and other colors did not come out good. But when we connected it to our Surface Pro and used the printer server, that's when the colors start coming out correctly. So that's why.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
No,
it does not work the other way around.
That's really interesting. But no, I've only done direct connect to printers. I've never done wireless because I want to avoid that altogether. If I could do something without using internet, I would do that too. But sharing, makes internet neat. Makes it.
Yeah.
You know what?
That's all. Yeah.
Jay, when I used to use Social Booth, and I would print test shots, and it would be the turquoises and the shades of blue and green, and they never came out right. And I would print them from Windows and they came out perfect. And I would ask the software developer and he couldn't even give me an answer. It was always like, it was my problem.
So I have a trick that I know in Breeze. If you go into printer color adjustments under green screen, if your photos are printing to pink, go down to -1, and that'll help you with that pink.
Interesting.
Try it.
Okay.
In printer settings, color adjustments, under green screen, go -1 and see if you like the print better. We do that with all of our events. Most of our
And
events.
where is that at? In the software or
printer settings in the
on your Windows?
For me in Breeze. So I go into Breeze where you configure your printer, you go into printer settings, you go to printer color adjustment, green screen, -1.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, Leilani has had her hand up.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, my computer went off, so my face
That's
is looking.
okay.
Yeah, I had recently acquired the PhotoMaster, the Mirror X. But I had been really busy with my mirror booth. So I was really familiar with the mirror booth, the one that I'm more familiar with. I have been doing this for a long time. I'm on my second year now. And I have been pretty busy with a lot of like Swift 15s and, more of like, they don't care about sharing through text. They care more of about the USB drive at the end of the event and, the unlimited prints and stuff like that. So I finally ended up having an event and they wanted to use the text to phone. They wanted to use everything, text to phone, unlimited prints, the USB, and they wanted to use the Mirror X. So I wasn't too familiar with it. And I actually had it up at a boutique for a while because they were kind of like promoting me. So I know it was my fault for not bringing it home and not messing with it as much as I should have prior to the event. When I finally brought it back a week before, I couldn't find the remote to turn on the screen. So since it's a really big mirror, it was like so difficult to get your hand inside to manually turn on the screen. And so I called the support team and they just couldn't help me. And I'm saying this because we were speaking about, when something has gone kind of wrong or, you prepare yourself a little bit before. And I feel like I was trying to prepare, throughout the whole week just because I knew that I wasn't so familiar with this software. And it was like a whole day of me trying to figure out how to set up a universal remote, because we couldn't get deep inside the screen to turn it on manually. And for you to be able to do the universal remote, you have to turn on the screen first. So yeah, the support team couldn't really help me. I ended up having to like take the touch screen off of the mirror booth, and I guess somehow I pulled it to where the touch screen kind of like ripped a little. So there was places that I would touch on the screen that were working, and there was places that I would touch on the screen that wouldn't work. So I was also, okay, so the universal remote thing was settled, and I was thinking that, I was a step ahead. I started working on the layout, and like I said, I wasn't so familiar with this software, but they had a 24/7 support group. So then they told me that my software was outdated, and then I had to, redo that as well. And whenever they updated the software, it was like, a few features change on there. So then my Twilio was working, but I had got it to work on my other mirror, and it was working, but at the event it wouldn't work. So then here I kept trying it and testing it and testing it, and it was working. It was texting the pictures. It was texting the pictures. And when I ended up arriving to the event, so the touch screen was not working. I was having to do everything manually, but I was able to set up the QR code. So instead of people having to type in their phone number, they were pulling out their phone to get the QR code, and that's how they would type in their number on their phone. But for some reason, okay, so one, I was in a dead spot, but they told me once I got to like the Wi-Fi again and I reconnected my photo booth, I turned it on, then all the messages would be sent out. So now nobody got their text message. Everybody, of course, got a copy, and I did give a USB with all the pictures, but none of the guests got their digital copies. So that was like, I think that was like the first bad actual comment that I've gotten in any of my events, and that kind of like put me down a little, because I guess I don't know, I guess that I feel like that maybe happens to all of us when you have had like, a few good reviews and good comments, and you haven't failed at timing or at any other thing, and then all of a sudden, like I really put my effort into that event, and I was really trying to like, it was a hectic week for me, just trying to set the whole event up. And then at the end, it was just like one comment just kind of got to me. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna try to work on that this whole week. But then my truck locked, and it's like a Yukon. So the back door was not opening. I couldn't get the mirror out. So now the mirror is stuck inside the truck, and I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna be able to open it so I can get it out and I can see what's going on with Twilio, because it's not coming out. So then I contacted them also about the whole touch screen not working, and they're telling me that it's gonna be like a $1,500 just for them, either for me to ship it out and for them to send me a new glass. But when I pulled it out, I can see that I don't need a new glass. I just need like the new, I guess like the new.
I think the touch feature, the touch mechanism probably failed, because that happened on my Surface Pro too.
Yes. So I think that's the only thing I need. And I was looking into it, and I was like, you know what, if I know what the board is the one that I actually need, like all you do is unstick the previous one that was on the actual glass, and then just stick a new one, and then attach the USB cord back into the computer. and I emailed them back asking them if that would be something, but I'm almost 100% that that's something that I can do. All I'm waiting right now is on being able to get the photo booth out of the truck now.
This is a good idea for like, we're thinking about doing maybe a little troubleshooting session as well for common problems like this one. So thank you so much for bringing that up, because it definitely happens, especially touchscreens can be a pain in the butt. And I guess that definitely bringing a spare set of keys would be good as well for your car. Rita had a question as well.
Yes. Hi, ladies. How are you?
Hi.
Hey, so my business partner Jay, who is on the call, she invited me, and I'm so excited. I said, "Oh, it's all women. I love it." Okay, so this speaks to the problems or issues that we ran into. So, funny story: we're located in Bowie, Maryland, and we had an event in Baltimore, Maryland, which wasn't too far, maybe about 45 minutes out. So, our horror story is we were literally about to make a left on the street where the event was. And then Jada realized that she forgot the backdrop for the photo booth. So she said, "Oh my God, I have to turn back now." I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "We're going to go to this event. And if we have to go to CVS and buy some tacks to put up the backdrop," and bear in mind, our backdrop is the heavy sequence. So it was just me being hopeful and positive. But I said, "I don't know how we're going to hang this backdrop up." So we get to the event. Everybody is anticipating the photo booth. They're panting, they're waiting, they can't wait to start. And we're panicking because we say, "Oh my God, we forgot the backdrop stand. What are we going to do?" So I literally looked up on the wall, and I remember a lady at the event saying, "Well, you can't hang anything on the wall. However, there are some tacks." And so I don't see anything. I don't know anything. So I said, "Okay, I see 3 random tacks." I'm not lying. Like, God was with us. We saw 3 random tacks on the wall, and we said we have to do it. So we took the 3 tacks to hold up a very heavy. I mean, Jada, I would say maybe it's like 5 pounds. It's very heavy. And so
It's
we
the
took,
CV linen backdrops.
yes.
So you
So
know
it was,
how heavy those are.
yes, so it was extremely heavy, and we took one tack and we put it at the end of the one end of the backdrop, one in the middle, one at the other end, and then we had some, I think it was like some packing tape, and we just lined the top with packing tape, and we pressed it as hard as possible so nobody could see it. But that was one of our horror stories. And Jada's, I don't know if it's time for Jada's turn, but definitely pack tacks, double stick tape, packing tape, anything if you ever
That's
forget
a good one.
it.
Absolutely. Like I have been saved by staplers
Oh
also.
my,
Oh
yeah.
my God, like a staple, yeah, pins, staples, baby pins, the safety pins, all sorts of things like that. Anything that
Yeah.
can hold something.
Yes.
Yeah, duct tape, pins,
Yes.
anything. It's like anything that can
Seriously.
glue something or attach something. It's good to
Yes.
have.
And extra batteries if your lights go out in your photo booth,
Yes.
because yeah. And
That one's definitely on our list is batteries. That's
yes. And the last
important.
thing I would suggest are one time our lights went out in our booth and we did not have enough time to ship it back to the seller. So we literally bought those lights. What do you call them, Jada? The strip lights?
LED, what the
Yeah,
LED lights from
LED lights.
Mhm.
LED lights, and we just like duct tape them at the very top, and it worked like a charm. But the batteries corrode very easily, so always have extra batteries for those lights. So those were my words of wisdom. We're pretty
Thank you.
seasoned now.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely good.
Thank you.
So I guess I could go after
Yeah,
her.
go for
So I wanted to say the end result to that was that the client did not care whatsoever. She had a blast. She loved it and gave us a great review after that. Even with the
That's
thumbtacks. I
awesome.
mean, you guys, I was falling out inside. Sharita, my business partner, is the one that usually has a calm mind, but I literally was going to drive from Baltimore to Bowie to get that damn backdrop, just not to have a bad review. But she was like, no, we're gonna work it out. So this is another oh shit moment that we had that was like just literally 3 weeks ago. We had 2 events that day, and we had just left a family reunion. We changed the paper and everything. Everything's good. We're going to the wedding. We get there early. We got 30 minutes to spare to just chill. We're just chilling. The wedding goes along. They're doing the first dance. Oh, everybody's just enjoying themselves. We're taking pictures. The printer's working and everything. Next thing you know, Sharita says that the ribbon needs to be changed. I'm like, okay, cool. She changed it, but then all of a sudden it said error. I don't know what the error was. So then I said, well, let's switch places. You take pictures and I do the ribbon. I'll fix the ribbon. I fix it. It says error again. So you know with the RX1, it prints out once you change the paper or the ribbon or anything, it does that 4 paper test, blank test. And then it'll actually print the actual picture. Well, the paper kept jamming. This was the last hour of the event, guys. Mind you, we actually have a printer. We actually have a second printer, but that was being serviced. We had no idea that this printer would lock up on us too. The last hour, I'm actually sitting there trying to fix the printer. I have no idea what's going on. I have older people behind me. I always tell people to be mindful of older people because they want their photos, right? They want to put their photos on the refrigerator. They kept asking when the printer was going to be fixed, like kept going in my ear. And the printer just did not work for the rest of the day, for the rest of the night. So I had to text everybody their pictures. The bride comes over and I'm panicking because I don't know what she's going to say. But surprisingly, my thought was we need to just refund her money because we couldn't provide half of the pictures. She didn't want a refund. She enjoyed everything that we did. The second day, I finally figured out what was wrong with the printer, and it needed alcohol swabbing. So I had to alcohol swab the printer just to, I guess, clean out whatever debris or dust it was, and it finally started working again. So the following day, I printed all of her pictures out. I met her at her house and gave her all of her pictures that did not that did not print, and I gave her a $50 gift card. In return, she gave us a $150 tip. So although it's an oh shit moment, like there was still a blessing in the storm regardless. So my tidbit would say always have extra printer with you no matter what. Have extra media, although we changed the media 3 times and it still didn't work. Still have your extra media. And another thing is that we had a scrapbook. She had a scrapbook. So unfortunately, because we didn't print the pictures, the people couldn't put their picture in the scrapbook. However, what we decided to do is that if that ever happens to us again, we're still going to have people write their message in the scrapbook, and then we're going to write down where we will put the picture, how many people were in there and what prop, how many people were in the picture and what prop they had, so we can actually input it in there later on. So that's it for me.
That's wonderful. I think that
You're on mute, Julia.
It all goes very much with your attitude when something happens, because it will happen. So if you get in a bad state of mind, the client's gonna know. So it's definitely a good thing to, they know that you're trying your best. They know that something happened, but they saw you hustle and bustle trying to get that sorted out. So that definitely played in your favor. And that's really it. We have to go in with the mentality that something's gonna go wrong. So just what are you willing to do? How are you willing to tackle it? So that was great for your part, and she was happy.
Yeah. And I'm usually the one that gets panicky. I'm thankful for my business partner who usually has the calm mind. I'm always like, no, it has to be done right now. Give her money back. We screwed it up. That's me. Like, just give her money back. But when we went to the bride, she was like, no, I don't want a refund. You guys are fine. Like, I'm enjoying myself. So we were like, thank you, Jesus. But I still feel like we need to do something. Just do something for her. Just thank you her for her patience and her understanding.
That goes a long ways. They know that and they notice it, and sometimes ideally they understand that there's things that are out of our control and they get it. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you get the Karen that is going to, you know, yell at you for, you know, the internet going down, even though you're not the master of the internet. So it all happens with, depends on the person, of course, but it's all about that, the attitude, and they saw you trying your best.
Okay, well, I think we are going to wrap this up. We've been on here for an hour and 15 minutes almost, so we'll let you guys go back to your evening because I know it's not early where I'm at, but I know it's late for some of you. But thank you so much for coming on this. I'm going to upload this onto YouTube. You guys will have the link as far as like the links to get the checklists and the PowerPoint presentation thing. And we are working on a couple other classes. We've got a photography 101 class coming up. We just need to finalize the date for that. And then we thought we would do like a general troubleshooting 101 kind of class, and then work on getting some specific ones to darkroom, breeze, social boot, you know, whatever people use. And yeah, we've got some good things going on. I just paid for a year of Zoom, so we're committed now. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good night, and we will all chat soon.
Thanks, ladies.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.